Morning, Paul. Thanks very much for taking the time to speak to me on Culture Corner this morning. It's great to catch up with you again, and brilliant to have you on as a guest in the end.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Obviously, we've spoken a good number of times, so I know your background, I know who you are. But for anyone who's listening that doesn't know you, if you can give us a bit of an overview of, who is Paul Hornby, what do you do, and where have you come from?
Yeah, no problem. So I am Paul Hornby. I am Chief Digital and Technology Officer at Bestway Healthcare. That's probably the point at which you say, I've never heard of Bestway Healthcare. Bestway Healthcare is a fully vertically integrated healthcare business that has got a number of different customer-facing retail pharmacy businesses. So Well
Right.
Pharmacy is probably our biggest customer-facing brand, second biggest pharmacy in the UK that nobody's ever heard of. We've got about 700 stores, online proposition as well. Second only to Boots in terms of physical store footprint in the pharmacy space in the UK. We've got a beautiful brand in London called John Bell and Croydon, which is a more high-end luxury brand, beautiful multi-channel proposition. And then we've got a few other online-only brands, and then we've also got a few pharmaceutical wholesale businesses as well. So fully vertically integrated. My role is a really interesting role. I've been at the business for 7 months, covers a number of different areas, and my background, which I'm guessing we'll probably get into in more detail, has spanned, e-com, digital, tech for the past 20 years. So yeah, that's me, and really looking forward to our chat this morning.
Fantastic. So one of the things you touched on there, I suppose your role is going to be making Bestway more visible to the, like you said, more visible to the market, enhancing its reputation.
Yeah, I mean, when I joined, I've been lucky enough to work with our chief exec previously. So
Right.
Our chief exec, Greg Pateras, joined the business last year, and I've worked with him twice before. So we know each other well. And when I had a conversation with him, he just said, there's such an opportunity here to digitally and technologically transform not only the business, but really the industry. Healthcare and B2B are the two big verticals really that haven't had the digital transformation moment in the sun. And, he joined and said, there's so much opportunity here. I need someone who can come in and help me transform the organization, culture, process, the approach to digital, approach to data, technology, maturity in terms of change. But, he told me when we spoke in one of my interviews about, a story of, when he goes into pharmacy, it still feels very similar to how it felt 40 years ago. You go in, you get a prescription, Chubba Chub lollipops on the on the on the desk. And all of the verticals have changed. How you bank has changed fundamentally in the last 10, 20 years. How you buy clothes and other bits has changed. Pharmacy, healthcare hasn't. It will and needs to. And so he'd said to me, if you're up for another go around the sun, there's a massive opportunity here to transform this business and transform this industry. And so, that's what attracted me to the role, to the business, to the sector. I'd never worked in the sector before, but loving it.
Fantastic. It's a great opportunity, isn't it? You look at it like that and a proposition that was put in front of you, it's very hard to say no to something like that, isn't it? Because you're not just transforming a business that you're in, but like you said, the sector as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's the aim. That's very much the aim.
Fantastic. Well, we'll dig into a little bit more about your background, but one of the things I wanted to ask you first, I ask everyone because I find it really interesting, is how did you get into tech? Was it a traditional journey? Was it a bit left field?
No, actually. So, I mean, I didn't do IT GCSE. I didn't do IT or computer science A level or anything like that. I always had an interest in computers. Like, I remember vividly when I was in my last year of junior school, I broke my arm at the start of the summer term, and I'm left-handed. I broke my left arm, and I couldn't write. And so I think the school had just started to put computers in. This was 1994, in the year that Jurassic Park came out. I can remember it. Showed my age. And, I had to do my work on a computer, and
Ah,
I had to
all
learn how to
right.
use one. And
Yeah.
then I had to go around and turn all the computers on in all the classes in the morning because none of the teachers knew how to do it because they were so new. And so it definitely stoked a little bit of an interest then. But then, like I say, when I went through school, I didn't do any qualifications in it at all. And at A level, I did maths, physics, geography. And then all my teachers said, go and do maths, go and do accountancy, go and do some form of finance at uni. And then at the 11th hour, I remember having my UCAS form in front of me and thought, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm really interested in doing something with computers, and
Wow.
applied to do computer science. And at the time, I went to Liverpool University. I'm obviously from Liverpool, as the accent will tell you. But at
Yeah.
the time, University of Liverpool was in the top 5 universities in the UK for computer science. And the first year, you could do half maths and half computer science. And then you could make your choice at the end of year one and go one way
Ah,
or the other.
that's a good idea.
So I did that as a punt, Adrian. And so I thought, well, I'll see how I get on. And then at least, you know, if that bit doesn't work, I can just go and do maths.
Yeah.
Got to the end of year one and I did better in the maths side than the computer science side, which wasn't a surprise really. But then decided to stick at it and do computer science. So did computer science. And then in year 3, we did a module on e-commerce, and just at that moment and went like, this is it. The mix of art and science, like the mix of technology and commerce, and thought, I love it. I love all, everything about this. So started to build my own websites to learn,
Oh, wow. Right.
set up a little business, doing websites for friends and family, and then
Yeah, yeah.
started to subcontract for a few businesses in Liverpool, and then finished university. And I worked in Barclays
Oh, yeah.
3 nights a week, or 4 nights a week for the entirety of my uni. So my uni was quite different to others. My course was 9 to 5, and then I worked 5:30 to 9. So I didn't really have the same experience that everybody else had.
Yeah.
And when I finished
Grafting,
uni,
wait.
I was like, I just want to get a full-time job that does something with IT, tech, websites. And I suppose now that I'm answering this question, it is a bit of an atypical path. I actually got a job in a school.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So my first proper job in some ways mirrors parts of my responsibility now. So my first job was half digital. So I had to rebuild and manage the website, and then half tech, manage all the computers, the hardware, the network, patching, server room, all that
Right.
type of stuff. So I did that for 18 months, and then got a job at what was then Shop Direct, specifically
Yeah,
as
yeah.
a web developer. So yeah, I suppose a bit of an atypical journey into it, but then once I was in, that was it.
You were away. Yeah, yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? It's sort of like, especially in today's day and age, you're senior leader in tech. I'm in the recruitment game. There's a lot of talk about, making tech more accessible to people coming out of schools and things like that. Sometimes you can just have that moment, can't you? Like
Mm.
you were saying, you just have that
Yeah.
experience and it takes you on that trajectory. And you don't have to do it at GCSEs. You don't have to do it at A level. It's never too late, is it, to get into tech? And we should keep banging that drum, with stories like that.
Yeah, and some of the best people who've worked for me over the years haven't been to university at all.
Yeah.
I and a lot of the skills that I use today or have used throughout my career, I can't say I picked them up at university. University helped me in terms of giving me exposure to a broad spectrum of technology, and also that particular module, that econ module, was transformative.
Yeah.
But so much of them, what I actually applied, I was self-taught based upon the little kernel that I got from university, or learned
Yeah.
from colleagues once I got into the working environment.
Yeah. Yeah. Working on learning on the job, if
Learn
if
on
you
the job.
like.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was one of the things I was going to ask you later on, but we're covering it now. I imagine from what you've said there, you're very much a leader who's, look, you're not following you must have a 2-1 at university, you must have X, you must have Y. You're more about getting the right person in who fits the organisation, the culture, the requirement, and adding the skills if need be.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the one thing I would say for university is, if I look at someone's CV, if I am recruiting someone, if someone's managed to get a first class degree, then it shows to some extent a level of aptitude, but more a level of application. So, for me, it says this person's got an ability to consume information. They've got a structured way of learning. They're willing to work hard, put the graft in, because you don't get a first class degree for free. So
No.
when I look at someone's CV and I see what they've studied, where they've studied, what they got, I do still use that. That absolutely does still help me. But well, like I say, over the years, especially in some of the more technical roles, some of the best people that I've had in my team haven't been to university, but they've been brilliant engineers who've, created a brilliant skill set. They've had great character. They've brought brilliant energy to a team. And also some of the people in my team haven't gone to university because, it's very much, they were a product of their environment, and they grew up in an environment that wasn't conducive to somebody getting to university, which can actually generate some of the most driven individuals that you will ever find.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
So yeah, I'm not a stickler for it. It's useful information, but it doesn't tell the full story.
Yeah, it's not the be all and end all, because I think, especially in our game, you see it less now. But going back a few years, you used to see it. We won't look at a CV unless they've got a 2-1 from or a first from a red brick university. And exactly what you were saying, you're missing a large chunk. It's a good barometer in certain instances, but you're missing a large chunk of some very good people out there, aren't you?
And that's why, going back to my uni days, I didn't have a normal uni experience. All my mates were living it up all over the country, having a great time. And I very much was of that mindset of, I need at least a 2-1 from a red brick university. So that's why, don't get me wrong, it wasn't 9 to 5 every day. That would be dramatic. But, also, bear in mind, I went to uni in 2001. It wasn't really as easy then to have a setup at home that had all of the compilers on when you were writing in a variety of different languages. There was stuff that you could only really do for my course in university. So my mentality was, get through uni, learn. I come out with a first. That's what I wanted to do. And then work. And I worked for Barclays for 3 years so that I could earn some money, but also learn what it meant to work in a corporate institution and then come out and go. Because that was very much my mindset. I'm not going to get a job unless I've got that university degree. And then my first job was a family friend who was the IT director in a college and said, well, actually, maybe you got all that wrong. But really, it's really interesting, isn't it? Really interesting.
Yeah, well, we're a similar age, so we went to uni at the same time, and it very much was driven back then, wasn't it? Like, if you want to get a good job, you need a really good degree. But the world is changing now. We're trying to make things more accessible to people. Just while we're touching on recruitment, when you're hiring, and obviously skills are key and that kind of thing, but do you also dive deep into sort of understanding behaviours and looking at like values? Do they align with the behaviours and people's interview? Do they align with the behaviours and values that you're looking for within your team and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I definitely try to. The thing I'm really conscious of, though, is not just hiring a team of people who are all the same. Like, I remember a boss of mine told me years ago, when I was young in my leadership career, and I was getting frustrated at members of the team because I didn't feel as though they were exhibiting the same behaviours and drive as me. And I remember him saying to me, you can't have a team of left backs. Like, you need to have real balance in your team. Like, and that stuck with me. And look, I became a senior manager in hindsight, probably too young an age. And so I had an awful lot of growing up to do, both personally and professionally, but in a little bit more of the spotlight. And that stuck with me for ages. So when I am interviewing people, of course, you're thinking about their technical skills and their work experience and how can they apply what they've learned and what they've done in previous businesses and roles to our organization. You are also thinking about, how will they, like the famous like cultural fit. But I also then challenge myself to say, but am I just bringing in more of the same person? Like, is this bringing the right diversity into the team?
Yeah.
And that's diversity across the spectrum, diversity of experience, diversity of thought. You don't. You're always asking yourself, is this person interviewing well because they're an extrovert, or are they interviewing well because they're good and and they're credible and they'll be a good team player? And it's always really difficult, isn't it? I always like to try and talk to people who's worked with this person before, or you know call on your network if you've got people in the network who
Yeah.
you've worked with previously, so that you know they're a known entity and you know what they're bringing in. But yeah, that's massively important, and also why, if I look over my past few roles, if I've quite frequently brought in people who I've worked with in the past again.
Yeah. Yeah. Trusted counterparts, basically.
Because it's easier then to look at, what does this team need to grow? And if you feel like you've got someone in your network who exhibits all of those skills and behaviors and values, and you're in a lucky enough position where some of these people want to work for you again as a leader, it feels like the path of least resistance, but also it's more of a sure thing, isn't it? You haven't got that risk of, could we bring somebody in who could destabilize the team?
Yeah, yeah. I suppose definitely in the senior leadership, in your senior leadership team level as well.
Mhm.
I think that's very important. I mean, someone mentioned to me not so long ago, you talk about cultural fit. They were like, what about changing the wording, Adrian, to cultural add? Rather
Yeah.
than, just so like what you were saying there, we're going to add into our team, we're going to add a right back and a centre back
Right.
and a midfield, rather than just, hiring more Adrians, which no one wants, to be fair.
Right.
It's difficult. It is difficult. But if you can hire people that you've worked with before and you trust, and one of the times we spoke previously, you said you're a big advocate of not being the smartest person in the room. Hire better people around you, and if you know that and people have worked with you before, it puts you in a better position, doesn't it?
Well, that's your job as a leader, isn't it? That is the definition of your job as a leader. So, if I take this role now, um, so my role currently spans digital, so like digital product. It spans um, marketing, data, like core IT, strategy change, governance. And when I joined, I had two direct reports: a head of digital and an IT director. Head of digital was brilliant. He left because he got a great opportunity somewhere else, and so I kicked off a process to replace like for like with a head of digital. I think we'd spoken previously about, anytime I join a new role, I'm a big fan of your first 90 days, and taking that first 90 days to review the organization, review your people, skills, operating model, org design, technology, processes, culture, how the organization turns strategy into action, how do you spend your money, capex, opex, the full shebang.
Mm.
And then try and create a view on where we are today and where your North Star would be. So I did all that whilst in parallel interviewing for, I think, 19 different candidates for a head of digital. And there was something
Wow.
that wasn't resonating. And when I stepped back and thought about it, I thought it's because actually it's not a head of digital that I need. And I spoke to some brilliant people. But, when I looked at it, the gaps that I could see were, I needed real data leadership in the organization so that we could get after data
Yeah.
and, view it as a value center and not a cost center. Really think about how we could use data to drive our business. It was
Yeah.
a big, big marketing opportunity. We had two separate marketing teams, one that looked at in-store, one that looked at digital. There was an opportunity for that to come together as a real world-class multi-channel marketing function. And then our e-commerce businesses were, were nowhere near the scale that I thought. So well.co.uk's got a part of it that sells what we call OTC products, over-the-counter products. And then
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
got two other brands, chemist.net and vetpharmacy.co.uk, that are pure play. And they needed a lot of work: range, price, stock, proposition, journey,
Wow.
the full shebang. So when I stepped back and thought, that's what I need. I need people who are better than me at those things.
Yeah.
And so that's what we've now got. So we, rather than bringing in another head of digital, we brought in a head of ecom, we brought in a head of data, we brought in a head of marketing. And, my job was to articulate the vision and the role that I wanted them to play. And their role now is to go and drive their area, own it, create a data vision. That's not for me to do. That's for the head of data to do. Create a marketing vision, create a North Star for the ecom part of our business. And then my job is to sign the checks, create the culture and environment within which they can make a difference and grease the wheels.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love the way that you think about that. It shows you as a humble leader, because there's plenty of egos out there, isn't there, who want to be. I want to be the cleverest person in the room. I'm not hiring people that are going to challenge me. So, and you're totally the other way about that. You want to embrace people that have got that skill, and it adds to you as a leader. I was going to say, like, how important is it hiring your own leadership team when you get in somewhere? And do you have non-negotiables that you look for, that like traits that you think have been successful in the past? Individuals have certain traits.
You know what, Adrian? It's not like hiring my own leadership team is not a non-negotiable. So when I joined Very, I inherited a brilliant leadership team. We had some natural churn,
Yeah.
but on the whole, we kept it the same. We added to it. When I joined Matalan, I inherited a great leadership team, and we added to it. So
Yeah.
I love meeting new people. I love working with new people. The thing I love the most about my job is trying to help people fulfill their potential.
Yeah.
So I love meeting new people and thinking, how can I help them be great, rather than I just need to go and bring a load of new people in. I always would prefer building superstars than buying them in. But like you said before, in terms of the cultural ad, when you've done your review of your business, your structure, your op model, your culture, there are naturally times when you need to add things in for it to be better. Adding in new energy, new ideas, but also just new core skills. The business I'm in now, it didn't really have data leadership. We needed
Yeah.
that. It didn't really have, deep e-commerce expertise outside of me. It needed that, because that's not my job to do that.
Yeah.
We had siloed marketing teams. It needed somebody who had the experience of running multi-channel marketing teams. We've now got that. So, yeah, no, it's definitely not the case that I'll always want to bring my own in, because meeting new people and developing skills is the thing I love. But the non-negotiable for me is, because of the type of leader I am, I need the right team construct to allow them
Yeah.
to go and execute well. So I will always do my utmost to get that in place as quickly as I possibly can, because then everything else flows from that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So quite often be a blended
100%.
leadership. Yeah. Yeah. Blended leadership too. And do you find that successful people in you create high performing teams? Do you find that within high performing teams there's a trait, individual traits that you see, or the
Um,
patterns, or not really?
First thing that springs to mind is, if I think about let's take my last three jobs here, Very, Matalan, as a team, as a leadership team, we always felt like we were the most high performing when we were the most personally and professionally satisfied, happy, engaged. So my leadership style will typically be to try and create an environment where people can be great, because I look at myself. I struggle to be high performing if I'm not happy,
Yeah. Yeah. Good
if I'm
point.
not engaged, if I'm not working for someone who my value set aligns with theirs. If I don't believe in the mission, you could
Yeah.
have the most capable person in the world, but if they're not on the bus, for want of a better phrase, it's always
Yeah.
hard to create that high performance. So I've always tried to spend quite a lot of time establishing that trust,
Yeah.
creating like an open environment where people can challenge and ask questions, creating real alignment on where we're going and why we're going there. And also just investing time in people. Like, how are they feeling? What are their personal ambitions? How can I help them grow? What are they struggling with? I'm a believer that people's one-to-ones are their time, not my time, just to cascade stuff down onto them. So how can we
Yeah.
just get under the skin of what are the things that they feel are preventing them from bringing the best version of themselves in of a day?
Yeah.
And then
I'd
over
love that.
time, if you help with all that and you're honest, you stay true to what you're saying rather than flip flopping every 5 minutes as a leader with inconsistent messages. That typically, in my experience, has tended to drive high performance, because you get people who know where we're going, know why we're going there, are bought in, are collegiate with the colleagues, are happy to challenge and get their elbows out and poke and prod each other to make each other better, but also ambitious. I think I'm like restlessly ambitious and want my team to be like that. I will always set a high bar and want us to everyone within the team to do that. I think all those things together,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my experience, has driven that high bar. But the trait has been people who've enjoyed coming into work every day, Adrian, if I was going to bring it down to
Yeah.
one sentence at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. But everything you talked about there creates the environment where they want to come into work, doesn't it, as well? So it's interesting that we talked in the past, like trust is a big thing, isn't it? It's almost like the cornerstone. And
Mhm.
do you have a go-to strategy when you join a business or you join a team to sort of
Uh,
build that?
I mean, I will always say to my teams, I will tell you as much information as I can and not as little. Some leaders, and that's their choice, will be quite frugal with the information that they share with their teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
My approach has always been, I will tell them everything I can, apart from stuff I'm NDA'd on, that I can't
Yeah.
tell them. And I'll be really, really straight with everyone. Like, again, maybe to a fault at times, but, and I haven't really got different modes or fascias. Like, I I am who I am, and I'll bring all of the best of that for the team. So like I'll have a monthly all hands with the team, and during that we'll talk to the team about what's going on in the business. What I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling, what what's going on that they should all be aware of. I'll do a live Q&A on that every month, and they
Right.
can ask me whatever they want, and I'll
That's
answer it
good.
all. So I don't. I've always tried to build a level of trust by just being straight with them. That at least they know. I mean, also I say to them, I'm a normal lad. I went to a normal school with a normal background. I'm not silver spoon. I don't
Yeah.
choose my job title. I'm just a normal person. I go to toilets in the same way that you all go to toilet. Like, just,
Yeah.
like treat me normally, but and I'll treat everybody in the way that I'd want to be treated as well. I'm not particularly hierarchical, so I think those things combined, and also I'm a big fan of wanting to spend time with people, one to one. So when I join the new job, I like getting together one to one with people. It doesn't matter of grade or anything like that. I want to know about them as a person, their family life, their background, their career, how they got here, what makes them tick. I have a genuine interest in people. And then with
Yeah.
leadership teams, I've got a few different tools that I've used. I think we'd spoke about one last time called Team Canvas. So when I'm
Yeah.
trying to build a leadership team, or if we're entering, into a new leadership relationship, if we're bringing somebody new into a team, I've used a tool called Team Canvas, which I've found useful to create trust, alignment, openness, honesty. So yeah, I've got a few bits, but
Right.
again, in short, Adrian, I just try and be authentic, and it's one of them. Like, will either like it or they won't, but at least they know what they're dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. Transparency, isn't it? And communication, like you said, even if you're over communicating, just getting that information out there helps to lower barriers, doesn't it? Hiding behind anything. That's it. Just thinking a bit off topic there. That team canvas that you use, it might be one to drop in the show notes for other
Yeah,
leaders to pick
yeah,
up on, if that's all right.
yeah.
Um,
Of course. Yeah, of
definitely.
course. I've shared it with loads of people. I can't remember who it was who shared it with me. I don't know whether it was actually a pal of mine, a guy called Andy Banks, who's at ThoughtWorks, great guy. Might have been Andy actually, and I've used it a few times, and it's always been really good. Always been
Okay.
really good. So yeah, let's definitely share that.
Share that. Perfect. We've touched on this, and I'm fascinated by it. But the first 90 days, you told me about the book because I've asked you previously, haven't I? What strategies have you got when you know that we could share with other leaders for when you first go into a role? So tell me a little bit about the first 90 days, and how does it work? What do you do? What's your strategy when you first land?
Yeah. Well, so potted history on my career. I obviously worked in the school. Then I went to a company that was known as Shop Direct at the
Yeah,
time, based in Manchester.
yeah,
That was a like bricks and mortar catalog business. So they originally had all the Index Extra stores. They had a number of different catalog businesses, Editions, Abound, K's Choice, the whole like Great Universal, the old Gus business. And I started there. Their big Liverpool rival was Littlewoods.
I
And
remember
then the
them. Yeah,
Barclay family bought both businesses in the 2000s, brought them together as Shop Direct, and then we moved from Manchester back to Liverpool. And so I was in that business and spent 12 years there, and I grew up there. So
wow,
started out as a developer, and then I think when I was 25, I started to manage the team. Then when I was 27, I became a head of it was called head of content and development, but it was basically like head of front end dev. When I was 29, I became head of e-commerce. And then about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years after that, I moved to head of digital transformation, like looking at the wider business. And I loved it and loathed it in equal measures. Like the, the, um, the academic part of learning around transformation and being able to step out of your silo and look at the whole business. And I found it all fascinating and met some brilliant people. But I found it really frustrating because I wasn't used to not being in the weeds. It felt like you were a consultant, like commenting
yeah,
on the business, whereas the rest of my career I've been in the business. So chose to leave, but I'd been at what was by that point, well, it was still known as Shop Direct at that point. Very was one of the brands. I'd been there, I don't know, 12 years or something like that, 11,
wow,
12 years,
wow.
and left to go to Matalan because I had the chance of running the online business at Matalan. And I can't remember if I bought it or somebody bought me this book called The First 90 Days. And I read it and it was brilliant. It, in short, it goes through when you are joining a new business or starting a new role in an existing business, how to structure your thoughts, how to structure your time, the types of things that you should dig into for
Yeah.
different types of businesses. Is it a startup? Is it a scale up? Is it a turnaround jobby? And the slightly different things that you would do. So
Yeah.
I found that really useful to give me a framework because, I was terrified joining this, full of imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
growing up
Yeah.
in this business. Will I only be good in this business? Will I be good somewhere else? All the stuff that would be natural for somebody to be thinking about when they're joining a new business after growing up somewhere else. And also joining somewhere as a senior leader. Whereas even though I was in a senior leadership position at Shop Direct, you were always felt like you were someone who'd grown up there. And so rather than being someone who'd moved there as an established leader. So this book helped me so much cut through all that and put some structure in. And, like I touched on before, it was all about don't rush into decisions. No, the worst thing that you can do is come in and make knee-jerk decisions with very little context that you can't back away from. I'm a big fan of Amazon's one-way door or two-way door piece as well. Is this a one-way door, whereas once you've made the call, you can't come back? Or is it a two-way door? So if you go through and you don't like to decide, you can come back. Yeah. Like those things together really helped me go in and just take time to learn about Matalan as a business, learn about its history, learn about where it makes its money, really getting into the P&L, learning about the customer. That was the first time I'd worked in a proper multi-channel business, so learn about both parts. What was the perception of the online part of the business? What had happened previously? I'm a big believer in understanding about like the network as well. Who did the job previously? Is the network in a good state? What's the strategy? What work is going on at the moment? What's the current vision for how you could move this organization forward? And spend time really getting to grips with what you've walked into.
Yeah.
And then also trying to create that view of where do you think it needs to go, and what's the delta between the two, and what are the interventions that you believe you need to make. And I normally think about it as like people, process, technology interventions that you'd need to make to go from what you think you've walked into to where you want to go. So I did that at Matalan, found it really useful. Had an amazing 3 years at Matalan. Like loved it, loved that business. So many amazing people. Lucky that I'm still friends with quite a few of them now. And then when I came back and then went back to Very, did it again, even though I knew the business. And then obviously recently joined Bestway Healthcare and did it again. So that as a mechanic for joining a new business or even a new sector, like I have done this time, is relatively tried and tested now for me personally, and find like it helps me get up to speed quite quickly and create a bit of clarity on the route that we need and want to go.
Brilliant. That's a really good insight. I'm taking from that just the learning. You're going in, you're learning, you're understanding. You know, where are we now? Where do we want to go? Taking time out to chat to people. I know you've emphasized this a few times during our conversation, getting to know people, getting to understand people. How quick? I know you said you take your time, so this might be a wrong question, but how important is it to have a quick, I don't want to use quick win. You know where I'm going with this, don't you? Yeah.
It's such a good question. And it actually, with this role, is that this is probably the one that I've wrestled with that the most.
Right. Yeah.
Because, I joined here on the executive team, and I know, like I said earlier, there's so much opportunity in this business. And in a lot of ways, healthcare, from a tech and digital perspective, is at least 10 years behind what I'm used to, especially at Very.
Right.
And that's not a criticism of the business I'm in now as a sector. Healthcare and B2B are 10 plus years behind modern retail businesses. And so when I walked in, did my first 90 days, there was quite a lot where you'd look at it and go, it's so obvious what we should do. Yeah. It is so obvious. And then you've obviously got people in your team who've got points of view, and they've got ideas that they want to move forward. And look, if I'm really honest, there's probably one or two things that I look at in my first 3 months in this role, where if I had my time again now with the context I've got, we may have made some different decisions. So, I say that because it's really, 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 really hard. Like I tried really hard to say, no, I'm going to take the time, but the businesses are moving at such pace that it becomes really, really difficult. And that's why I come back to try and, lean on your core skills, in your first 90 days, if you're going into a role where you've got bits of your role which you've done loads in the past and bits that you're learning or you haven't maybe done as much, lean on the bits that you've done in the past to get your quick wins, create the time, headspace and capacity to learn in the areas that you haven't done before or where the way in which this business does it is different from elsewhere. And then also, again, think about those one-way doors, two-way doors. So if you're going to
Yeah.
be making early decisions when you know it is impossible to have enough context within the
Yeah.
first 90 days, if you're going to make some short-term decisions and get some quick wins, try and make sure the two-way doors that you can back out of rather than one-way doors. So, look, again, back to honesty, I say this very, very transparently because I really wrestled with it myself because you want to make an impact, you want to make a change, but also you want to get it right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was asking you because a few people have said to me like the tipping point. I think that's in the book, the 90 days. Getting to that tipping point quickly. But I think if you rush it and you dive in too soon, then you're going to create something that, like you said, you can't get back out of, aren't you?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
You mentioned your previous companies. So you worked with some huge companies. Shop Direct, Matalan, Very Group, high senior levels. Which one presented you with the biggest challenge as a leader, and why was that? And did you have to change your management, change your leadership style to be successful in those businesses?
I think the biggest challenge was probably the one that I enjoyed. Well, I think this job is the biggest challenge. The one that I'm in now is the biggest challenge. But if we go back prior to that, the biggest challenge at first was the Matalan one.
Yeah.
Because it was a new business. I definitely had that imposter syndrome that I'd mentioned before. So I had different challenges of needing to come in at a senior level to a business that had historically underinvested in the online part of its business. So, when I joined, I think Matalan was £1 billion business and it had done 76 million online. So it was 7% online. That was a massive underpenetration in comparison to others. I think I was the 6th person to come into that seat within 7 years. So there'd been an awful lot of churn in terms of leading the online part of the business. And I remember vividly, first day, walked in and I was pointed to my desk. I had no seat, no monitor, no drawers. And
Welcome.
desk hadn't been cleaned. And oh my God, what have I done? And then as part of the 90 days, went round and spent time understanding the business. And you could quite clearly see at the time that the online was viewed as another store. So let's say there was 230 stores at the time. Online was just viewed as the 231st store. And there was a mixture of apathy or confusion or distrust to online. Is this going to take our jobs? Is this just in the way? Is it a bit of a nuisance? And so that was probably the biggest challenge because at that point we had to. There was no real clearly defined strategy for the digital part of the business. There was apathy in parts of the wider organization, and then also a lack of motivation within the team because the team felt like second-class citizens within the organization. So there was challenges across all fronts. And I think collectively with the leadership team, like I said earlier, that I inherited, and then we added one or two new talents into the team to plug some capability gaps that we had in areas that we wanted to mature, like user experience or, delivery, change, governance. I think we did a great job. We grew that business considerably. The thing I was the most proud of actually was we built great relationships with the rest of the organization and changed how online was perceived, built bridges, had, made some great friends and colleagues across the wider organization who really became motivated in helping us drive the online part of the business because they saw it as part of their business and not just somebody else's. So I think Matalan felt like the biggest day one challenge.
Yeah.
Very was a different challenge because when I went back there, again, I had some imposter syndrome again. I went in with a bigger role. Um, and I went back as digital customer experience director. I think I had a team of 150 people, and some of the people
Wow.
in that team were there when I joined in 2006. And so
No
then
way.
that was a different challenge of, well, how will I be perceived? How will this go down? What will be the
Yeah.
view
Yeah.
uh, on me coming back? I went back there to lead a big transformation of all of our digital technology. So different challenges there. But look, I think that's it would be boring if you joined a role with no challenge. I
Yeah.
don't think I would like to start to go and join somewhere where everyone smelled like fresh paint and everything was new and everything was easy. The interesting
Yeah.
thing about these big senior roles is going in somewhere where there's a big problem that needs to be fixed. People, process, culture, technology, transformation. They're the types of remits that I enjoy the most.
Yeah, that Matalan one sounded like a huge success, but tough because you've gone from being almost an alienated part of the business to bringing it all together. Like you said, the distrust of like, are they going to take our jobs? And all that must have been to break down barriers in that one must have been tough.
Well, it wasn't. It actually wasn't that hard once you actually did it.
Right.
In that it was lovely. There were lovely people there. So I think the apathy and mistrust had just grown from a lack of communication, Adrian, not from you know
Yeah,
built
yeah,
some
yeah,
genuine problem. So
yeah,
if I'm honest, it wasn't that hard once it was done because once you came through your 90 days and you were really clear on how the business made money, so you could show empathy to the rest of the organization. I think the worst thing in the world would have been to come in and go, right, we're going to grow the online business in complete ignorance of the stores, and the stores are doing 93% of the revenue. That
yeah,
would have been the wrong thing to do. And it was a multi-channel business. It wasn't a single channel business. So I think once you could credibly show that you understood the business and that your vision was to drive multi-channel value and not single channel value, we did some stuff like, let's be really clear on the value of the customer. So what's the value of a store only customer? What's the value of an online only customer? What's the value of a multi-channel
right, okay,
customer?
yeah, yeah,
Unsurprisingly, the value of a multi-channel customer was higher than the others, unsurprisingly.
yeah,
So when you could, base it in data, base it in your customer, and then when your North Star, which, is something I will always talk about, what's the North Star for our business, was about how do we drive multi-channel value? It's quite easy then to go and have those conversations and show that you were a good team player. You wanted to help them. You wanted them to help you. You were balanced. You wanted to just drive the P&L because we got a bonus if Matalan as a
yeah.
business hit its EBIT number, not if the online business hit its EBIT number. But they were all lovely people and smart and well motivated. It was actually quite easy once you were having the right conversation.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose it's gathering that data and the understanding that you did. Going back to the first 90 days again, isn't it?
That all goes back to the same thing.
That's the same thing. I've been bending your ear for ages, so I won't keep you much longer. But I wanted to. We've talked about this in the past, and you referenced it then. You were a manager at a really young age, so and obviously were super successful off the back of that. How did you find that? Like, what was your biggest challenge as a leader in that environment? Was it being surrounded with or managing people at the same age or your peers at the same age group?
All different. I think that like the biggest challenge was that I didn't know it myself. Like in my
Yeah,
first
yeah, yeah.
leadership role, I was 25. Like that was the first manager role. My first head of department role, I was 27. And
Wow.
I was still learning. I was still learning myself. So I definitely made loads of mistakes. And I remember, and I was always like really really ambitious. And again, when you look back, at that time I didn't have any children.
Yeah,
Um, so work was my life, really. I was highly, highly motivated. I was highly driven. And at times I could probably get it wrong
yeah,
because back to the point of you can't have a team full of left backs. I would judge people on the standards that I held for myself, but not realizing that their life situation could have been completely different to mine.
Yeah.
And so, I was lucky to have great leaders who would keep bringing me back on track, clip me wings when they needed to be clipped, or keep my feet on the ground, or just give me a little shake. And I was lucky to have some good leaders and also a few good mentors. So, I remember, you look back and you go, oh my God, I can't, I can't believe somebody didn't chin me when I was 31. I was head of ecom. I remember saying to Jonathan Wall, who was ecom director, still talk to him today, brilliant guy. I remember saying to Jonathan, I'm ready to do your job. I'm ready to do your job. It's like I was 31.
How did he take that?
We got on really well. We got on really well. And I think he said to me, I said, I could do your job. I could do your job. And he said to me, there's a difference between being able to do the job and being ready to do the job. And I was like, all right, okay, that is great advice. And then I had a mentor at the time, a guy called Gary Kibble. I think he's chief marketing and digital officer at Wix at the moment. Again, great character, great guy. And he drew a diagram out, and I'll try and do it with my finger so that you can see. So he said, when you start a new role, you need to go through your 90 days and then beyond, and you need to learn and build a foundation of knowledge and credibility in the role. Being a credible leader, credible level of knowledge about the organization, blah, blah, blah. And then once you get to a certain period, you're then ready to build on that foundation and move up to the next level. And then you need a significant period of time building out another foundation. And then once you've built that foundation, you're then ready to go up again. And those periods of foundation, the amount of time that they take may differ based upon the complexity of the role. Yeah. And the reason he said that was, he said, for me, I'd kind of gone like this. And I hadn't, because I'd moved up quite quickly, I hadn't really built the foundation that, if we're all honest with each other, and I'm honest with myself, I probably hadn't built the foundation to be a head of department at 27.
Yeah.
And so then I needed a period of, I almost needed to catch up. And a lot of that was learning on the job. Look, it's helped me in the long term because, I sit here today, 42, and with 15 years of, senior leadership experience. So at a relatively young age to have that experience. But again, the experience was learning by dropping the ball, Adrian, doing stuff and going, oh, that hasn't worked. That hasn't elicited the response that I wanted. I probably wouldn't do that again.
Yeah.
And that's been, rather than like any form of master plan, I am definitely a fan of fail fast.
Fail fast, learn. But the thing is, it's learning as well, isn't it?
You've got all learning, all of it. And I do love learning. And I have always tried to do different types of professional learning throughout my career to add on to the on the job. I've been lucky enough to do loads of that. It's all helped.
That's good. I was going to say, you're the sort of leader who's, you've not got a massive ego, so you realize you've done something wrong. You learn from that. You're investing your time in one example about the first 90 days, and you just said then you're doing you go out there and you learn over and above on the job as well. So as you're investing time in yourself, aren't you, to become an even better leader, which is phenomenal. Last couple of questions, and then I'll let you get back to work. But I know, obviously, we're talking about culture. Culture is part. You've mentioned it a few times. It's part of the podcast. You've been involved in a lot of change and transformation programs. How big a part in change and transformation programs does culture play, and can it either enable it to be successful or completely derail it?
It's such a cliche term, but I believe it so much. The old adage of like culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Right. Okay.
I do believe that via a variety of lenses. Almost back to the point that we made before. If you can't create an environment where people feel personally and professionally fulfilled and motivated, and trusted and in a safe space to challenge and speak up and want to push for better, then you'll struggle to make any progress. You know, if you've got a culture that is quite toxic, that it lacks trust, that is very hierarchical, that isn't fair, then it's hard for anyone to bring the best of themselves or to transform something. I think also just on the flip side, and it's not necessarily culture, this one, but you can also, you know, make all the technological transformation in the world. If you don't think about how you land that with your people, how you evolve your processes, how you ensure, you know, it helps create better outcomes for your people, then that can kill many a transformation project. So I think culture and people are always the most important investment that any organization would make. And, you know, sometimes I think it's too easy for, you know, an organization to focus its capex and opex spend on tech, whereas
Yeah.
going to be people who are using it. It's going to be people who are going to make the difference. You know, it's going to be people who have the biggest bearing on, do you hit your number? Are your customers happy? Do customers feel as though your business is going above and beyond for them? So I always think it starts and ends with your people. And then, you know, your job as a leader is to create the environment within which they can be great, and then make sure they've got the right tools and technology and processes to help them do the job really efficiently and make a difference.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's a good response. I get understanding on that. And one of the things you touched on there that I never thought of, the communication piece, letting
Mm-hmm.
people, and that must be a big piece as well, letting people know, like, this is why we're doing it. This is what's going to happen. Keep them informed during the process, each step of the way. I suppose the advantages of what you're doing, that kind of thing.
It is. It's definitely, you know, one of the, you asked before about challenges. One of the things that I have had to adapt to and I'm still adapting to in terms of my leadership style is hybrid working. So
Oh yeah, yeah,
I'm a fan of it. Like I'm sat at home now talking to you. I I'm a big believer in it. You know, I think the days of just needing to be chained to a desk in an office, regardless of what else is going on, are over. Um, but I'm not a fan of fully remote. I think it's really difficult to build trust as a team if all you do is talk via Teams.
yeah,
I think it is really difficult to effectively communicate if you never have any, you know, contact time. I think there is something to be said about when you are in the same space, communication is better. You know, even just
yeah,
via the process of osmosis, you get more context, you get more understanding. There are certain conversations, planning, strategy, ideation, problem solving that can be better when you're together. On the flip side, if you're an engineer and you're pair programming or you're mob programming or something like that, and you know a lot of businesses, ours included now, are working with remote engineering teams.
right,
A lot of the engineers, their setup at home will be better. You know, so like it's definitely, there's definitely a bit of a mix. But I'm a massive hybrid fan. But I'm a massive fan of being in the office. Like I'm in the office at least. Well, I'd say I'm in the office 3 days a week. But it's the communication part as a leader, as someone who likes to go and get to know people, know them one to one, you know, sit and have a chat with them, be able to communicate a lot of the things that are going on within the organization. That is undoubtedly more difficult, undoubtedly. And, you know, like I said, I run an all hands, monthly all hands with the team. And because also I've got a disparate team now, marketing,
yeah,
data, digital, tech. It brings in, you know, a real spectrum of people in terms of what type of environment they like, what type of communication they like, what communication style they like, introverts, extroverts, the full shebang, really. So trying to get that right is a challenge. We've got a geographically distributed team. You know, we've got our main support centres in Manchester. We've got a site in Durham. We've got a site in Leeds. We've got a site in Stoke. We've got a site south of Birmingham. So in the
right,
past, I've always ran 2 away days a year. Whereas even if the communication could be a little bit broken down, you'd have your whole team together in person twice a year. That's a new challenge for me here, which is how do we do that in a world where everyone's really geographically dispersed as well? So communication is so important. but has definitely become more challenging post-COVID.
Absolutely, yeah. We were going to touch on that. I was going to touch on that at the start, but we went off. But that's really helpful for other leaders. So, monthly all hands. You hit the nail on the head there. People receive communications in a different way, or like to receive communications in So it goes back to how you like to operate, really understanding people. So how do you like to receive that information? Not everybody's the same. The away day things as well. I think with it being hybrid after COVID, you have to. There's not a one size fits all, is there? You need to invest the time and do multiple things like you obviously do.
Trying to.
But Paul, no one's got the answer, mate. Have they with the hybrid working? No one's got the answer. And I think someone told me the other day, and I'd heard it before, but it was like they like to bring people in the office for like for a reason. They like to get them in. They'd like to create that environment. I'm a big being in the office fan. I'm in there 3 days a week, so. But there's definitely some ideas there for other leaders about, how to effectively communicate on a distributed and hybrid teams.
My approach here was I wanted to try and create an environment where people wanted to come into the office.
Yeah.
So rather than mandating, I want you to come in the office X amount of days, my view was, how do I try and become the change agent, which creates a culture and environment where people think it's value additive for them to come in. I will do a better job if I'm in. I will learn more if I'm in. I will be able to be more productive if I'm in. Again, and the stress, not every day, but that they see the value of it rather than seeing it as a chore. Now, that is definitely happening now in Manchester. If I look at my team, we've got the new first world problems that we're running out of seats.
Yeah.
Which is lovely. Lovely. I see a lot of the marketing and digital teams. I'll see a lot of them because they choose to come in. They see the value in the collaboration and communication. They're not coming in for presenteeism.
Yeah.
And that's one site. My next challenge as a leader is I've got multiple sites and teams across those different sites. So every role brings new learning opportunities, but it's getting communication right is an ever evolving challenge.
Yeah, but being aware of it as well, as a leader, aware of that is super important, isn't it? So, Paul, listen, thank you so much. I've taken up a large part of your morning, so I just wanted to say thanks very much for taking part in the podcast. Brilliant to speak to you again as always, and thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, Paul. Thank you.